Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with the advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co.
And please put unprofessional development in the "How did you hear about Podgo?" That will give us a little finder's fee. Thank you.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an exciting episode of Professional Development. I'm Tudisco.
And I'm Mealey. And today we have with us Mr. Ryan Tibbens. He is a teacher and a podcaster like us. And maybe this will be the first time that I'll tease EduPodlooza. And Ryan Tibbens is I believe a willing participant and going to be in EduPodlooza in June, boys and girls. Don't ask what it is right now, but we're just kind of like, just think if it's called EduPodlooza, it's got to be cool.
Look, if you have to ask, you're not cool enough to know.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I think Perry Farrell is going to be there as well, but I am not sure. Okay, I'll just throw that reference out there.
How you doing today, Ryan?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. That given the nebulous nature of the EduPodlooza, I'm generally in, but with that intro, I guess I have to be now, right? Especially if Perry doesn't show up, somebody's going to have to carry this thing.
Exactly.
You're the musical guest, so learn to play an instrument by June.
Yes.
Hey, I can play guitar for about 25 minutes and you'll think I'm really good. Nice. And after that, you're going to realize that I'm not very good or you're going to start hearing repeats.
I do the same thing. My friends are like, "Oh, you can play guitar." I'm like, that's like me saying I know how to say "Donde está la biblioteca" and you assume I'm fluent in Spanish.
Yeah, I'm sweet. I'm sweet at a campfire for a little bit because I give you the amount of music that people want to hear. And then right around the point where half the people are like, "Well, this guy shut up." Like, I shut up because that's all I got.
Right. Okay. Anyway, this is Wonderwall.
Yeah, Mary Jane's Last Dance. Just give me anything in 3 chords.
Nice. Well, I can't do any of that, so all I can do is clap off.
We'll give you a tambourine.
Off beat, yes.
Well, you can rock the electric triangle.
Nice, yes.
I'll give you a solid amp.
I did dress as Ed Grimley for 3 straight Halloweens one time, so I should be able to play the triangle. There's another 80s reference for you guys.
What is an Ed Grimley?
You don't know Ed Grimley? Oh my God! So it was a character by Martin Short, often confused by those unfamiliar with Pee Wee Herman, but he's nowhere near Pee Wee Herman. He had on a plaid yellow shirt and then he had his pants that were like Urkelized up to his belt. And he'd go, "Oh, it's really decent. I want to see Pat Sajak, I must say." He had his hair.
So he was Martin Short. Got it.
Yes, and his hair stuck up in the front, and he had a cartoon, a Saturday morning cartoon, the Ed Grimley Show as well.
So you said you did this 3 years in a row. My question is, what years were they? Because I feel like if they were recent, everybody was just like, "All right, what's with the weirdo?" And then left the room. You do it far enough back, it would work.
That sad man forgot it was Halloween.
So it was 86, 87, 88, and maybe 89. I'm trying to think,
That's good. So that works.
Someone told me I had done it too many times. He said, "Is that really, you can do Ed Grimley again?" I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Gotta go with the hat trick.
Well, then I went Marge Simpson, and that was clever.
There you go. I've been a banana for the last, 4 or 5 years. Where I bought a neoprene banana suit from a mail order from China, and it's huge. It's like full body. I have a point. Actually, the bottom end of the banana very sort of awkwardly hangs down around knee height, and so looks really weird depending on how you're standing. But,
nice.
It's actually, and it's really, really warm. So if I take kids trick or treating, I don't need a coat or anything. I'm a banana every year now. Like the kids at school just expect it. You can. I don't know. Actually, I probably have. Probably getting some weird looks in traffic, but usually I take it off for that. But yeah, it's very comfortable. And I said I'm just going to be a banana forever until this thing either falls apart or I'm too fat to fit in it. Which
that's right.
Given pandemic, that's possible. Give me another year of this. I don't know.
Well, yeah, when you hit max level, you can't go any further. So that makes sense.
At which point you'd be like a squash.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what's the equivalent of a fat banana? That's where it's headed?
Yeah, my students asked me, "What are you being for Halloween, Mr. Tudisco?" And I said, "Fat and tired." And I think I nailed it.
Nice. Wow.
All right. So, Ryan, can you kind of walk us through your teaching journey here? What got you into the classroom to become a teacher? And then what brought you into a studio to begin podcasting? And all the things that brought you to this clearly pinnacle?
Well, I was born on a warm June afternoon.
In a log cabin.
Yeah. I started teaching, in what year did I start teaching? 2006. So this is my 15th year. I went to James Madison University here in Virginia, and I had really no intentions of being a teacher. It was really sort of a backup, just something to do. I was an English major. I had added an anthropology minor. Like, I loved anthropology. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I don't know. I got room. I was thinking about either another major. What was I going to do? And I had a couple of friends who were taking education classes, who I knew through the English program. And they said, you should come in, check it out. These classes aren't that hard. Like, just sign up. Let's do it. And so I did. And the first class was okay. It was, I don't know what they call it, intro to teaching methods. It was basically like a history of teaching, just very sort of basic stuff. Okay. And it was easy. And I looked around the room and I thought, well, this is easy. And there's a ton of cute girls in here. Like, there were, 25, 30 people in the class, and there were maybe 5 guys in the whole thing.
There you go.
And I thought, well, we'll try this out. And I had no serious interest in teaching all the way through until probably my second practicum, like, where you sit and you watch for a couple of weeks and they say, okay, you're going to teach this class for like a week. Mm-hmm. And I did, and I had a lot of fun. And I got very, very good feedback from the supervising teacher, and then from whoever from the university came to watch. And that was a point where I was like, well, that was fun. Like, I liked it. And they're saying that was really good. And that didn't feel like it was that good to me. Like, I felt, I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. But in retro, I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, that was mostly trash. I could do that way better. So then when I'm getting good feedback, I thought, well, that maybe this is something I actually could be really good at. And so at that point, I started to take it a little more seriously. I had very good student teaching experiences. I student taught 6 weeks in middle school, 6 weeks. Actually, I did 6 weeks in high school, 6 weeks in middle school. And then the original school hired me back for the end of the school year, right after I'd finished my master's, to be a long-term sub for a teacher who was pregnant. So then, awesome. I made a little money right there after graduation, took the summer, did a little traveling with the money I'd made, and then started teaching in Loudoun County, where I've worked ever since. So, yeah, I would say, a lot of people say, like, those who can't do teach, mm-hmm. And then what's the rest of those who can't teach administrate, right?
Thank you. I say that often.
Yeah. Or those who can't teach PE. I hope my cousin's listening. We go back and forth. No, but it wasn't really like a backup plan so much as just kind of something to do. And like a lot of schools, JMU offers a 5th-year master's degree. So you minor in secondary education. And then after you finish your undergrad, you take a few summer classes, you take classes in the fall with another practicum, and then in the spring you student teach. So essentially in like 2.5 semesters, you get a master's degree. Oh, and so nice. I thought it was the cheapest, most direct route to a master's in mm-hmm. whatever. Right. And it got me an extra year in college, and I really liked college. So I was I would love to stay, Yeah. And so, but it wasn't until I was really almost right up on that point that I really thought seriously, hey, I may actually do this. So, I don't know. I'm always suspicious of people who are too eager to be teachers coming out of high school. Because mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you're not going to be a good teacher. It just, if you go through high school thinking, man, all I want to do is come back here and teach, I'm suspicious of how well you're going to connect with the students who don't want to be there. And if we're being honest, a lot of your students don't want to be there. And if your experience is just really wanting to be there and get back to it, I really do. It doesn't mean you're a bad teacher, but I do think it puts you at a disadvantage working with the kids who are less motivated, because you probably never had that experience. So when I hear somebody else who says something similar, like, I didn't want to teach, or this was a backup, or, I loved it, but it was my second career, I'm usually a little more like, oh, okay. That when you've had your sights set on this,
I know you're cool.
Well, it just means that there's a better chance you can sympathize with the kid who just really doesn't want to be there on any given day.
Yeah.
Yes. And when your experience was you always sort of enjoyed it, wanted to be there, you're probably good at a lot of the parts of the job, but you probably struggle a little bit when dealing with those kids who maybe have some of the behavior or the motivation problems.
I was the bad, I had no idea I wanted to be a teacher, and I was not very good at being a student. And I've had multiple conversations, more so with, some of the younger teachers now, but there's still some of the, teachers who've been in it a while, because their perspective is, I can't believe the kids, blah, blah, blah. When I was in school, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, when you were in school, you were acting like the upper 25% of kids who were in school because that's who you are. I said, you probably graduated, with, a GPA in the high threes or higher, and you weren't sitting in the classroom probably in your high school career, because most schools track, and then you were sitting in some academic track where the rest of these kids were somewhere else.
Even now when you say, we don't track, but everybody ends up tracking themselves, right? Because some kids choose to take, multiple AP classes. Some kids are taking, lower level classes. Sometimes if you're taking a VOTEC program, it limits your options on your other day or, whatever it is. And so you're right. And probably a little bit of personal bias, but like I have friends sort of all over the place. I have friends who went to very good colleges. I have friends who dropped out of high school, and sort of everything in between. And I always think to be a good teacher, you need to connect to a lot of different kinds of people.
Yes.
Especially if you're teaching one of the core subjects where you're going to have that variety of kids in the room.
Right.
And so, I always think you want somebody who probably did graduate in the top 20% of their high school class, but you want somebody who had a lot of friends who were hanging around the other parts too, or you want somebody who maybe was very smart and graduated in the lower sections and then got it together later on in college, something like that. But, generally it's like, yes, we want the intellectual aptitude. We want you to do that stuff. But if those are the only people like if that's what you think school is going to be, like you're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a broad base to sort of start those relationships.
Yeah. You want the people who are there for the kids and not just for the academia, not just for the intellectual aspect of it, not because, I'm here because I love physics. Well,
right.
I mean, it's good, but a lot of your kids don't. So make sure you compensate for that.
Right. But like, as Ryan was addressing though, you do want to be able to, be the kind of teacher that the kid who's in the top 20% needs as well. So to be able to connect with that kid and all that, even though a lot of those kids kind of almost, automatically connect with teachers because they like school, like, the ones you were describing there. But you do also want to be able to go, okay, what can I do to stretch, or what can I do to push, or what can I do to, challenge this kid, whether it be academically or just challenge them just in what they're thinking and how they're, behaving and what they think about, life. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, I don't know what the porch are. When I came out of college, I was like, I'm in it for the content. Like I was this close to going to graduate school for English. Like I wanted to be a college professor, and my best English professor sort of talked me out of it. Not directly. Like he didn't say don't do it. He just sort of talked me through, because I took the general GRE and I scored awesome, like way, way high. And then I took the subject area, like the English literature GRE, and I scored just barely above average. And what I didn't realize was I just sort of rolled with like, I know this stuff. I bought a study guide. I didn't do much though. I just sort of looked through it, and it's almost all Brit Lit, and I'm really strong in American stuff. So I took the test on things that I'd taken a fraction of the classes I probably should have in that area. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to him about like, what schools do you think I can get into with this? Because clearly I'm demonstrating aptitude on the one, but I'm also demonstrating barely above average knowledge, on the other. What do I do? And he goes, well, before you even worry about what do you want to do, in terms of like what school, he goes, what do you actually want to do? And he sort of talked through the idea of like what a college professor, the reality of trying to be a college professor in the 2000s, I guess is what it was. And one of my friends from high school actually did this. And he recently quit. He was an adjunct professor for a while at a very good university in the Midwest. He's EBD, he's everything but his dissertation now for his doctorate. And he now works for a union. He's now like a union negotiator. He uses all the language skills and all this stuff, but in a very different way. And he experienced this almost directly. He said, look, you're going to go to graduate school. If you're lucky, they're going to pay for some of it. You're going to have to be getting a doctorate. You're going to have to publish constantly. You're going to be 30 before you ever make any kind of money. And he goes, and it's not going to be any good money at first. He said, James Madison is a good school. We have a strong English program, but we're not like a great English program. He's like, this is not an elite English program. I was like, I know. And he goes, we just had an opening for one, entry associate level. Like you're not even immediately tenure track position, but you are full time. He said they got over 250 applications for the one.
Wow.
And he said over 200 of them either had a doctorate or were just the dissertation away. And he goes, do you want to be in that stack groveling for the job that is going to pay you less than you could make going to teach high school?
Wow.
And that's the moment when I was like, man, maybe this high school thing's the way to go.
Yeah.
And, and I was probably a year or two into actually teaching before I realized, I was good. I was building good connections with the students, but it was probably a year or two in before I really realized like, you have to like the kids at least as much as you like the content, maybe more. Yes. I now sort of think of myself as like doing the job in thirds. I'm 1/3 content expert, I'm 1/3 salesman, and I'm 1/3 actor. And it's nice to not act, to just actually like the kid or like the lesson or like whatever. But even if I don't like any of these things, it's my job to act as though I do. Mm-hmm. And so, on any given day, I'm doing some variety of the thirds of content expert, actor, and salesman. And that generally yields decent results.
I'm so excited, guys. We get to read Ethan Frome.
Yeah. Well, or imagine it's like, all right, guys, so we're going to read this same act of the Crucible that I just read in the 2 previous blocks and that I've done for the last 8 years, because everyone in the school does it at this grade level. And you say, okay, well, we're going to keep pace, we're going to skip the next act and watch the movie. And everyone's like, oh, great, you must love movie day. And I'm like, guys, I can't, I don't even have to look at the screen. I can recite this thing. I've seen this thing so many times. Like, it's not saying it's not good. I can't act like I'm jaded before it goes on. Once it's done and they're like, did you love it? And I'm like, yeah, I loved it the first 6 times, but now, so I can't say that before it starts, so they don't watch it, so you got to sell it up front, and then I'll be honest with them when they're done. So
it's just Baby Shark on in the background, basically. Okay, I heard this 1,000 times.
I was going to say it's more like Groundhog Year than Groundhog Day being a teacher.
Yeah,
depending on what you teach, but yeah, it really can be Groundhog Year. It's like, oh, there's this, and there's like Groundhog Day. There's like, ooh, I really love this part of the day, saving the kid falling out of the tree, but oh god, I got to go shake hands with Ned again.
Over and over. Yeah. I saw a guy just actually post that on Twitter in the last week or so. He goes, go watch the final scenes of the Crucible movie 3 times in a row and then tell me how you feel for the rest of the day. And the thing was, my first thought was like, think of the scene. I'm like, man, you got to feel like so like defiant and like, like powerful and like sticking it to the man. And I thought, or you could just feel like that was misery, because that's not the first day that guy's ever had like that. And I couldn't decide if that was supposed to be an uplifting tweet or like a very sarcastic one. I was like, it works both ways. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that I think that's sort of the nature of the job, and as fun as it is to teach a new thing, it takes a while to get good. Like, I personally think you have to teach the same class 3 or 4 years in a row before you can ever say even maybe good at it,
Yes.
I've been teaching my AP Lang class for 6 years, maybe, something like that. And I really I felt like I was good the second year. The first year is like, oh god, what's happening? It's just it's a car with no brakes. Like, we'll just figure it out. And then it was probably somewhere just in the last 2 years though, where I'm like, oh no, I really got it. And at any given moment, we could just throw a unit away and I could make something up on the fly, and I'd be confident that it's at minimum good enough. But there's no way you get to do that right off the bat. And so when you think about teachers who maybe are in schools where they flip-flop schedules a lot, or where you don't get a lot of continuity in your administration, that makes it really hard to do the rest of it, because if you're not confident, that's the thing, Tudisco, like you were saying, with you gotta be there for the kids, but you can only be there for the kids if you already have the content.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or you're a great buddy to them, but you're still a terrible teacher. Like, they like you, but you're not really doing much for them. If every year is not the Groundhog Day, if it's just the reverse, like every year is something new, you're just constantly you're just praying to God you can tread water fast enough. And it means you never get good at it. And when you feel stressed about the content piece, like the piece that should come a little easier, you're probably dropping the ball in the relationships and the rest of it. And so that's really why I would argue that we need more content professional development. We always go and it's like, here's how to use the new software. Here's a new group activity. Here's this great new way to assess your students. I'm like, could I just go to a class where you teach me about a book that's been published in the last 8 years? Because, I don't do a lot of reading that's not for work, because I have so much to read. I'm an English teacher. I do so much for work, So I would love a little more content area training in those professional development sessions, just to make sure that teachers are keeping current on that stuff. Because when your content trails off, you have the greatest methods in the world, but I can teach you, but if I don't know what I'm teaching you, then, what good is that? So, that's a tough balance. You got to be there for the kids, but I think you can only do it well if the other stuff sort of falls in line with that first.
Yeah, I hear you. This is my 8th year teaching, I think. And I want to say in those 8 years, there may be 2 years when I was actually repeating the same curriculum.
Wow.
Every other year, it's been either I was moving to another new school, or I got moved to a new grade, or things just got shuffled around in the curriculum. And
I haven't done that bad, but wow.
So this year, I got this brand new curriculum. I'm looking at it, and it's the first time I'm able to look at it and go oh, okay, well, I'm just going to drop the ball in this unit, and I just know I'll fix it next year. And
I'm teaching a brand new thing as well. Our state has rolled out. I knew maybe about 50% of it before we started. And then there's like a whole bunch of stuff that I have never even like taught and I don't remember studying. That's because it's been forever, it's my 10th year teaching. So if I even took a class on this in college, that, it's not in my head. And so I'm basically maybe 2 to 3 days ahead of where the students are, to where I'm like, okay, I gotta watch like 5 YouTube videos and find all this stuff to go. Mm-hmm. So how do I actually learn this? And you think you know how to do this kind of problem until all of a sudden, well, there's a negative over here or this, so what happens if it's less than? Then what do you do? I'm like, the good thing is my kids are learning really slowly. So then, it's like, guess what? We'll just do this again tomorrow. We didn't really learn it today.
Man, that does take some pressure off. Like, well, I hate to break it to you guys, but you're all a little bit dumb, but that's okay because you're helping me out because I don't know it either. So we're all going to do this again tomorrow.
Yeah, my lesson
plan tomorrow a little bit dumb.
Is the second half of today's lesson.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and it's sometimes like situationally, like I think in our lives, like outside of school, it affects this. When I first started teaching, I was right out of college. I was 23. I had the time. The first year, maybe first 2 years, I don't think I really did a whole lot. I maybe did like a quick club after school, but I was at the school until like 8:00 most nights of the week.
Oh, God.
I was there I was on a first name basis with the custodial staff, because I knew if I went home.
New teachers don't do that. Don't do that. Go home.
Well, it's yes and no. It's don't do it. I'd give that advice to people, like don't do that or don't do it often. Like pick one day a week where you're going to stay and do it. That being said, I am a substantially better teacher because I did it, because when I made things, because that's one of the things you have to be careful of when you're in that scramble mode, is that sometimes I just have to get something ready for tomorrow that's good enough. Mm-hmm. The problem, like we always say, I'm going to go back and fix it next year. The reality is, at best, you're going to improve 50% of those things next year because there's going to be other new things you have to worry about. Yeah, and so if you can get it right the first time or get really close to right the first time, it takes a ton of pressure off later on. I was living in an area I didn't, most of my friends from college, like I moved to a place that I didn't live before college. And most of my friends from college in the area were still like 30, 40 minutes away. So there was no like pressing after school plans for that first, couple months until I made some friends, got to know people. And so I was like, well, I don't really have anything to do. I might as well get this together, but like this year I'm teaching a 12th grade ELL English class for the first time. And that one again has the benefit of I've been teaching long enough. I have some stuff, and it's a class that by its nature moves a little bit slower, is a little more focused on fundamentals. So that's okay. But I think 2 years ago, they gave me public speaking for the first time, which is cool. It's an elective. It's public speaking, whatever. But there are some technical things you need to know. It's not just stand up and give a speech. Like you do have to teach them some things with it. But I had a kid who was 2 years old, and I had my daughter was born 2 or 3 weeks into that school year. And it's a semester class. So I'm 3 weeks into a class I've never taught before, and now I have to write subplans for it. Oof. And that rate of change is substantially affected by how much time you can put in outside of your contract. And, I always like to talk tough about, work to the rule and don't work outside of your contract hours. But that's in reality, if you want to be good at it, you have to do more work than they give you time for. Yeah. Or you have to fake it real hard. And then on the days it's bad, tell everybody this is bad because they don't pay me enough or give me enough time to get the work done. But nice. That's a hard sell to a 16-year-old sometimes.
Yeah. So, that don't work outside of your contract hours is a great idea until your students turn in essays.
Yeah. Yes.
And then I have 100 papers to scramble through and leave detailed marks for and give feedback on and let them rewrite.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it varies by geography. I work in a wealthy area. I live in the county next to it, which is far less wealthy. It's why I can afford to live there. But, I always say that for where I work, I am paid perfectly for the time I'm in school. And they pay me enough to answer some emails in the evening. Yes. But what I'm not paid for the grading and occasional planning, but it's really the grading. It's AP English classes. Like I got a lot of papers to grade. God. 26 books that have notes in, and I have to go through and grade the notes. And should have been a PE teacher, right? That's the smartest person in any school is the PE teacher, because they get the same pay and do a fraction of the actual work.
Oh boy! Here we go. We're angering the PE teachers again.
No. Hey, my cousin is a fantastic PE teacher in Maryland. His wife actually is a PE teacher in Maryland. I think she just won like state PE teacher of the year or something. She just won a big award. Like they're awesome, and we used to joke about that. And I used to tease him, like, come on, man, you teach gym. And he'd always get so mad. The gym is where I teach. It's not what I teach, but he's like, he's a really smart guy. He went to college, like on full scholarship, but he's a brilliant guy. And it only took a few years of teaching before I realized, like, oh no, he's way smarter than I am, because it's like, what's your plan today? And he just rolls out a bag of kickballs, like, how do you grade that? Well, they all got dressed and played. So like, I'm done. I thought, what an idiot. I'm going to teach English.
Yeah. Well, talk about Groundhog Day. Oh my God. Teaching gym. But, what was I going to say? Well, back to what you were saying though, one of my goals or whatever is to have one like really, really good lesson per week. If we can have one lesson that's like, all the bells and whistles and things went really, really good, but then the next day, we're just going to practice doing equations like the one that we learned how to do yesterday. And then the next day is like, okay, now we're just going to like basically just wash the dishes,
Yeah. Well, and I think you have to be honest with that, because I do that all the time with kids who are 16, 17, 18 years old, 19 years old. Today's a day where we need to do these things, because we just, and I tell them at the beginning of every class, I take 5 minutes. Some days it's 10. And I don't particularly care, because I think purpose is important. And in the first 5 to 10 minutes of every class, we're always making a connection on at least a 3-class span. What you did, what you're doing today, what you're going to do. And that also means that I don't constantly have to be pretending to entertain somebody. Like some guys, like, it's grammar. We got to do some grammar work. We haven't done anything with your mechanics. They go, and I go, I know. I said, but here's the thing. Like, we can fancy this up and I can try to make this into a fun activity, but it's going to take longer. And that means we're going to spend 2 classes on it. If you can just grin and bear it, we can do a really good job of it today. We take 10 minutes next class to review it and we're done. Or we take a little quiz, we're through it. And sometimes I'll let them vote, and they almost always vote for the thing that is more efficient. Mm-hmm. And then, I always love, I get observed or something on that day, and the assistant principal's like, well, have you thought of this? Could you try this? I'm like, yeah, we could have, but that would have taken 2 or 3 classes, and I just got it done in 1, which now means that when we get to something that's, sort of in the broad scheme of things, sort of more important, it's a higher priority. Now I have extra time to dedicate to it. Now we can do something that's a little more fun or whatever else. I think sometimes in schools, we get trapped with this idea that engagement's the most important thing. I think sometimes we confuse engagement with entertainment, and like, yes. You don't have to have fun here. Like, the number 1 priority is for you to learn things. Yes. Maybe number 2 is fun, or probably number 2 should be like, relationships and soft skills. But then number 3 is fun, whatever. It's on the list. It's just, if you put fun at the top of the list, let's be honest, like, you just shouldn't be here. Like, kids always ask, like, are we going to have a party in this class? You get close to break. No, we're not going to have a party in this class. Why not? Guys, let's be honest. If you want to have a party, you can have a way better party at home. But if you want to learn some stuff, you can learn it better here. Like, what sense does it make for us to have a crappy party here and then me send you home with extra homework to go learn something, and you're going to do a crappy job of it there? How about you let me do my job and you learn here, and you won't have any homework and you can go home and have a party? And they're like, oh, okay. For that stuff, I would just say be honest with them. So your idea of like 1 good one a week is awesome, because that means that on the other days they understand, like, hey, this is just what we got to do. When you're trying to make everyone great, you probably end up with a lot of mediocrity. Yeah. Like, when you try to make everything, you can't treat everything like it's equally important. It's a bad way to create a priority list. Like, your priority list needs to go top to bottom, not side to side. And so
you will burn yourself out if you do that. Yep. Yeah. If you like every day is going to be like something that, I can, post on YouTube or whatever, and it's going to be a big, thing. It's like, oh man, it's the best lesson ever. It's like, no, I can't do that every day. I'm a human being.
Yeah. I mean, it's not saying no one can. I just think that those people are few and far between. And
what's his name? What's our boy in Atlanta? Our boy in Atlanta? Oh, Ron Clark. He's awesome. He dances with the kids, and he's got a slide. I love Ron Clark.
I know who you're talking about. I don't know much about him. I know.
I'm a huge Ron Clark fan. In fact, Ron Clark, if you're listening, come on Professional Development. We can have a blast. Your books make me cry, and I just love you to death.
Didn't they do like an NBC like miniseries, like the Ron Clark story or something?
Yes. Chandler played him.
I was just going to say, was it Matthew Perry, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he did something awesome. He took his kids to New York one time, right? Just scrounged up money to take his kids to New York City. He was in this poor area in North Carolina. So he somehow finagled the big thing in Times Square, that the huge TV billboard, which you pay whatever it costs to have an advertisement on there. He I get goosebumps just thinking about it now. He just pushed his way and got to whoever he needed to get to. He said, listen, these are these poor kids from North Carolina. They've never been outside of their town ever. This is their first time in New York City. Can we have their faces on that screen for like 3 minutes? They gave it to him. They said, okay, but it's going to be at 4 a.m. So then, like, middle school kids, I think they are. So you have to put them in bed like at a regular time. And then at like 3 a.m., he's just like going down the hotel, beating on the doors. Guys, we got to go. Where are we going? No, just get up. Just get up. We got to go. And they're like all in their pajamas. But then they're out there in Times Square and they see their faces on the billboard. And I get like choked up just thinking about it. I'm like, and that's awesome. And when you do things like that make a kid's like day or life sometimes, that's cool. But then, but you can't do that every day.
Yeah, no, and if you think about it, though, a lot of the people who do that, I mean, maybe not to that extent, but, the teachers where it's not, their social media presence is 100% teaching, and every lesson you think like, yeah, this person must never sleep, like, how do they grade papers and so, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Also think about how many of them actually stick around, like how many of those people are out of the classroom in 5 years, either because they quit the job and did something else, or they turn into administrators, right? Like, that's like the number one way to become an administrator is just to keep trying. Like the number one trait that most school administrators have is determination. If you go through and look at resumes, I'm certainly not saying they're not bright people. I'm just saying like they don't have the highest average GPA of any department in the school. They're just people who kept going to school.
They're workaholics.
And you just work and work and work. And there's something to be said for that. But that also means that you're not pumping the brakes and maybe taking time for some of those other things. Like I'm not big on professional role models. Like but if I had to pick one that people would know, like I'd go Jaime Escalante every day, the AP Calc teacher at the poor kids in LA. And just because the whole thing there is high expectations. Like this is going to be hard, but you're going to do it because I'm going to, and I always tell them like, guys, this is going to be hard, but it's my job to help you learn it. So if I do my job and you do yours, we're going to get a good result. If you don't do your job, it doesn't matter how good I do mine. In theory, I could not do my job. And if you were still driven enough, you could still learn it. Like the student, in case anybody ever doubts, like the student's the most important person in the school because that's why schools exist.
Yes.
But also given internet access and a library, a lot of those kids could teach themselves a lot of this stuff without a teacher. Like have access to this stuff. Like we're kind of a luxury in a way. But, I think high expectations for the students is important. And I think higher expectations for the teacher is important. I mean, I'm not rolling up the kids' houses like he does in what's that movie called? Is it Stand and
Deliver?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Mealey saw it the first time like a month ago and hates it.
Oh, really? Really? Oh, yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I'm not showing up at kids' houses, but short of the showing up at the kids' houses, like, it's that with maybe a slightly, I mean, I'd like to think a slightly better sense of humor in the classroom. Like he's funny, but he's always mean funny.
Yes.
I'm mean funny, but I'm also good natured funny. Like you got to balance it. Yes. Kids are always like, why you say so much mean stuff? And I said, because if I only said the nice stuff, you wouldn't pay attention to me. You gotta create a little mystery. There's gotta be a little balance, but
Well, I watched the movie.
Payoff.
I think everyone would say Stand and Deliver, Stand and Deliver, Stand and Deliver. And I'm like, oh, I'd never seen it. I didn't catch it when it first came out. And then it wasn't anywhere playing when, became a teacher. Like, so it just came on Netflix literally in the past, 2 or 3 months. And my expectation was it was going to be like I'm watching The Wizard of Oz or Star Wars or Citizen Kane. I'm like, this is going to be some cinematic masterpiece that's going to be except it's going to be about teaching. And I'm going to be just completely blown away,
you're just watching how the sausage gets made in a poor school.
Right. And this is this is a glorified documentary essentially of a very good teacher who was able to accomplish some very good things. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, he took some kids who were in a really bad situation. He got them to learn calculus, and but the movie.
Oh yeah. I'm late to everything. What are you watching on TV? And my answer is usually nothing. Right. Or I'm watching a show that won a bunch of awards 8 years ago.
There you go.
Oh, second time through. I'm like, no, I have trouble buying into the hype. Mm-hmm. When too many people tell me that something is great too quickly, I usually assume that there's something going on here. So I
something
wait.
Nefarious.
Yeah, there's something weird, so I wait, like West Wing's one of my favorite shows. I didn't watch I never saw a single episode of it until it had been off the air for probably 6 or 7 years. Something like
I haven't seen it yet. I'm still thinking about it.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Is it better than Gilmore Girls? Because that's the best.
You know what? Of all the shows that I have sat through with my wife, that is actually my favorite one. Of all of the sort of the the female dramas. It is the best. It is the best written of all of them. Like that's when she's like, "Do you mind if I put it on?" I'm like, "That's the one I can do." But now it's over. You know, we've seen.
And that's the same writer as Mrs. Maisel.
Is it really? Ms. Maisel? Yeah. That's a good one. That's one of the only shows we were a season late, but that one I don't know. Somebody visited the house and like put it on, and I was like, I don't want to watch. They're like, just watch it. And we watched 2 of them, and I was like, okay, cool, you know. But yeah, that's again,
just
great
keep watching
writing,
for Lenny Bruce. It's worth it.
Yeah, Lenny Bruce. See, that's I think what happens with a guy like Jaime Escalante, right? During his time or when that movie comes out, he's amazing, right? But then it ages a little bit, and like you watch it and you think like that's not great methods. He's just up there. He's just drilling these kids. That's not what we do in school now. Like if you ever go back and listen to any Lenny Bruce. Most of it is not really that funny. Like I get why it was funny then. Like I get why he was popular then. But right now I'm like, yeah, no, if that guy was a stand-up comedian today, like nobody's paying to go see this. The
Same thing as Sam Kinison, yeah.
Yeah, but if he didn't do what he did then, you wouldn't have a lot of the stand-up comedians you have now. So it's like you put them into their context, and it's very important. Jaime Escalante doing what he did in the early 80s in East LA, like doing absolutely. If you try to have him, you know, a teacher doing that same kind of stuff today, they don't make a movie about you. They probably fire you or send you a bunch of training about how you can do more, you know, peer-to-peer sharing and development. So, you know, all of it's very contextual, I think. I don't know.
I mean, and no computer usage in the classroom. What was that about? Laziness.
And then there's others like Carrot Top who are only now being appreciated for their comic genius. Is that right?
Well, it sounds like you just did, so it finally happened.
Look, he runs a show in Vegas like 5 days a week. I gotta respect that. Like that's impressive.
He's Gallagher 2.0, and I don't know who's gonna I don't know who's gonna do it next. But
well, he's gonna sell it to his brother.
Oh, but I think that Dave Chappelle, the way you think about Lenny Bruce is how people think about Dave Chappelle like 10, 15 years from now. So.
Yeah. Oh, a ton of his stuff is not going to age well. It already has. Like, if you go back, we watched, I forget what it is. Eddie Murphy. I forget which one's the first, Raw and Delirious. I forget which one. Yes. I think it was Delirious first and then Raw. Yeah. But it was a few years ago, and one of my nieces was visiting. She's probably end of high school, beginning of college. And my wife was like, I loved this when I was your age. It was my favorite stand-up, and we put it on. And there's like a lot of homophobic jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, a lot, you know. Yep. And we're watching, and I'm like giggling, but kind of cringing as I'm giggling. And my wife's like not even paying. She's laughing hysterically. Like after it's over, she's like, yeah, so that didn't age well, but man, that's still funny. You know, my niece though was like just, I think she laughed 2 times the whole time. She's like, what was that? You know, she now is recently, she said she watched it more. She's like, I get it now. She's like, but yeah, that did not, you know, age well. I think Chappelle's going to do the same kind of thing, but I think he knows it too. Like Eddie Murphy didn't know that wasn't going to be funny. I think Dave Chappelle's saying things that he knows are not going to be funny. I think he knows that some people right now don't think it's funny, you know, and maybe that's what's different about it.
Well, I mean, I like stand-up a lot. And I think really good stand-up comedians have found a way to be entertaining while knowing that they don't have to be funny all the time. And so they can still be poignant. But one of my close friends pointed out to me, we were talking about how great Monty Python is. Like, we love Monty Python and how, I can always watch it. It's always funny to me. Like, just continually. And I know I'm a nerd and a geek and whatnot, but, like, there is something just that doesn't age about it. And so we were talking about it, and my friend's like, yeah, well, the thing is, over time, smart starts to sound stupid, but silly is always silly.
Nice.
And that's kind of what it is to me. Like,
there
George Carlin is so silly. Like, I can still listen to his silly bits, and George Carlin always crack me up.
Those of you listening to this podcast in 3050, that's why we've stuck around, because silly lasts.
I was actually going to say, it kind of fits with that, but that's probably what Monty Python has going for it too, which, you know, tying it in, it is that you have the high and the low brow. It's why Shakespeare was popular in his time and still is. That there's like this great writing and these like really great like plays on words, and then there's just like some really like in your face dirty jokes, you know, and like
perfect fart and poop jokes.
Yeah, and like it hits top and it hits the bottom. Monty Python does the same thing. You have a lot of like very intellectual stuff and a lot of really silly stuff. But there's sort of something there for everybody, and so it keeps you around. But
that's Frasier as well. For those of you who, that's when I think top and bottom, I think Frasier, because it is so. I don't know if you guys are fans of Frasier, but it's extremely intellectual, and then it's just like slapstick at the same time.
You know what? That's one that probably I don't know if it ever. I had a roommate one time for a while. That was like, oddly enough, that was like his favorite show. And it was Seinfeld and Frasier were on, and baseball. Like those were the only things he ever put on the TV. And I gained a new appreciation. So like, it is really funny. It's reasonably well written. Yeah, but it does that high and that low. And I think you probably have to do that a little bit in class, especially in the mixed classes, right? You got to be doing the content. But if you make it through, if you make it through a week and haven't made at least one joke that you had to apologize for, or that, you said, and then you blushed a little bit, like nice. I would argue you're not connecting with your crowd as well as you could be. And I mean, the humor is powerful though. Like if you think about Dave Chappelle right now, he gets to say things that no one else gets to say. It's why, well, I don't know. Have you guys ever heard this? If you go back into like medieval times, you've got the king in his court and everyone's in the room. Who's the second most powerful person after the king?
Right. The jester. Yeah.
It's the jester, because the jester's the only person other than the king who gets to say whatever he wants.
Right. And
the jester can say anything he wants, and it's meant to be a joke. And maybe it was just a bad joke, but unless you have a whole bunch of bad jokes in a row, they're not going to kill you. They're not going to fire you, whatever else. Everyone else has to be careful. And so, the comedian's important. And so when you hear people going into cancel this comedian, or, how can you buy a ticket? That person said this. It's like, yeah, but even if you don't like what they said, you have to let someone in society still say what they want to say. And if in our culture that's turned into stand-up comedian, so be it. But at least one group of people has to be able to speak completely freely all the time, or you end up in some really weird places where there's some taboos. And I think you get that with a lot of good stand-up comedians. Obviously it's different. You still bite your tongue a little bit, but
that's how I am in department meetings, though.
I mean, that's what I was just going to say. Being funny in school gives you a little extra leeway, because you can say a thing as a joke, and even if people know it wasn't a joke, they don't come down on you the same way as if you had just made a direct criticism.
If it's funny because it's true, then the administrator that's in the room and everyone laughs at it. The administrator is kind of like caught unawares, rather than I'm crying about it, or I'm yelling at you about it, and I go, well, we could just blah 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 blah, and everyone's like, yeah, exactly, and it's like, why don't we just shoot for 100% graduation rate? I mean, that's the best. I know how we can do that. Let's put their names on the diplomas right now, and just like tape them on the top of their lockers. And if they can reach it and grab it, then they graduate. Does that sound reasonable? We'll have 100% graduation rate.
That reminds me of two stories. I was in a grade level meeting once. We were talking about the achievement gap, right? We were talking about how, our students of color are not scoring as high as our white students. And we needed to, put together some actionable items, to help close that gap, which is important. Like that is an important goal for schools. And I raised my hand and I said, could we just fail some of the white kids?
Nice.
That is, by the way, that is the easiest thing to do, is you just quit teaching your high achieving kids.
Right.
And I always said that as a joke. I've used that line too. What's weird? Last spring when school shut down and they said, well, we want to get started with online learning, but hang on. And like for my school, we didn't open it was almost a month with zero instruction,
mm-hmm.
and the reason was because not everyone could access it. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh my gosh, they finally did it. They said 15% of the kids can't access the stuff on the internet, so we can't teach the other 85%. Right. I was like, my God, I've been recommending this as a joke for years, and it finally turned into policy.
There you go.
So you close the achievement gap. Yes, you don't like raise people up, you lower other people. That's excellent.
Yeah, why not? And the other thing I thought of is speaking of using humor, just kind of get through the day. Well, before I was teaching, I was a sub, and I was substitute teaching once for gym. And being a gym teacher might sound easy. Being a substitute gym teacher, not so much. Because you just have 100 kids you got to keep track of. You don't know anyone's name.
Nice.
Oh, and they're all just running. So, but one of the classes that was in there, one day was not an inclusion class, like an isolation class. So like all the kids had like one-on-one paras. They all had some major disabilities, physical or mental or whatnot. And the paras were there and they were just hysterical. Like they were cracking me up because you need humor to get through a job like that. They can get dark very easily. And so one of the kids had a basketball and was looking at the net, and looking down at his basketball, looking at the net and looking down at his basketball, like really trying to process through. And one of the paras was talking to him, was like, hey, are you gonna throw it? Are you gonna make it a point? You gonna throw it? And the para who was working with this kid went, no, he's gonna drool on it and then he's gonna drop it.
Nice.
I died. I was done. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Best possible outcome at that moment is the kid was paying just enough attention to throw it at somebody's nuts. Like,
there you go.
Like, how dare you? Boom. Like, that would have been
punchline.
That would have, oh my gosh.
And drop it. Wow, that's good stuff, Tudisco. Oh, that's fantastic.
I did not say that, just for the record.
No, but I mean,
it used to work.
So I'm going to give you the choice, okay? It's a choice board, Ryan. So do you want to like get into like heavy philosophical stuff with your read, think, write, speak stuff, or your teaching philosophy of like old school versus new school and what to keep and what to throw away? Or do you want to kind of go into our apocalypse desert island scenario?
So, all right, I tell you what, you guys gave me a short agenda a little while before we got started, and I thought through this, and I thought, well, you know, the first one there, the read, think, write, speak's easy because that's something I talk about in class. Like, that's how I pitch, you know, usually the first day of class. The old new, I don't know. I think it's a good topic. And then the last one is actually the hard one. And so, you know, if I was a total pansy about this, I would dodge it. But instead, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run through each of them quickly.
Okay.
And then you guys can decide, because you're the hosts, you're the bosses, right? I'll give you short form answers to each one of them, and then you decide what is or isn't worth talking about.
And follow up.
And for anyone listening, if it ends right after this, it's because this was all horrible. I chose not to go back to it. You know, they're like, oh, well, those were 3 answers we hate. All right, let's wrap this thing up. So if this cut short, that's what happened. Here we go.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Stay unprofessional.
So read, think, write, speak. It's actually my email address still, because that's how the website and what turned into the podcast got started. I'd had students for years, I'd say years, probably for 4 or 5 years, saying I should start a podcast, and they were suggesting it before I actually knew what a podcast was. I don't really listen to a ton of podcasts. You know, here and there, I check out when I see somebody post something interesting, you know, online, but it's not something that, you know, I've ever been super into.
Except unprofessional development.
Well, of course,
all of our episodes.
Subscriber, and you know, I email them off to, you know, random friends and family.
Yes, you have your unprofessional development tattoo on your forehead that the kids can't see now.
Lower back.
Nice.
Yeah, that's so. But yeah, no, they would say, you know, because we do a lot of discussion. It's a discussion heavy class, and so on days where the discussion went well, or I try not to lecture too much, but I lecture is important. I think, you know, it's gotten a bad name lately. I think because it became somehow synonymous with the teacher being lazy and not trying to engage the students. But I really just think you have to be good at it. You know, think about how many people, we talked about stand-up comedy. Think about how many thousands of people pay money every year to go see someone basically stand there and lecture them, you know, and now you have the ability to lecture a person with a specific lesson, you know, with specific skills or knowledge in mind that could be useful to them. So while I don't do a ton of lecture, I also don't shy away from it, because I don't think it's a bad thing if you're good at it. And so on days where it's a little lecture or it's heavy on class discussion, I'd have kids leaving the room say, you know, you should record that. Like, I feel like people would listen to that outside of class. And after hearing it enough, I thought, all right, you know, I'll do a podcast. But I felt like I can't just teach my English class, you know, like that is not necessarily gonna fly, just trying to teach segments of a book that listeners haven't read lately or whatever. So I said, okay, let's talk about school and some culture stuff. And that's been going okay. But originally, as I was getting started, I used the phrasing that I use when I start my classes, which is there's 4 things you have to do in a good English class. You know, I don't care how many you list off 12 state standards or whatever else. You got to read, you got to think, you got to write, you got to speak. And you read first, because that way, if you didn't know anything, you still have the ability to think. If you jump in and say, think about it, but the kid doesn't know anything, they have nothing to think about, right? And it's useless. So we do the reading first, both as practice for your literacy and gathering knowledge. And then we think hard about it. I ask a lot of tough, open-ended questions. I play devil's advocate a lot. I try to find places where we can disagree, because you learn more when you have to argue. You know, when everybody agrees on something, it feels good, but you don't learn anything new because you already thought that, you know, and so you have to find those disagreements. So we think hard, and then you write, and then you speak. And I would argue that that's all school needs to do if you could throw in numeracy. Like, you know, the old 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. I really just think that add in rhetoric, make a 4th R, and that's really all school needs to do now. And rhetoric's more important than ever because of the amount of media, the amount of communication we're in contact with. I think people more than ever need to be aware of the different ways they're being manipulated or be able to manipulate back. And so I would change the 3 R's to the 4 R's. But yeah, so I mean, I started the podcast the idea of the podcast started there, and I had a website where I was doing a little blog. I still have readthinkwritespeak.com. It just redirects to, my podcast, ClassCast Podcast. But that is a big part of how class runs. So I tell the kids, on any given day, you're going to be doing these 4 things. If you ever find a day where you didn't do a combination of the 4 or they didn't go well, like, your job is to tell me. If you do your work bad, I let you know so you can do it better, and you have to do the same thing for me. And so we really just focus on building the reading, the thinking, the writing, and the speaking skills. And it goes really well. All the other standards get folded into it. So you don't really have to try too hard to check off every standard and every substandard. If you're doing those things well and you don't throw away some of the mechanics in the writing, it's done. It takes care of itself. And so I think there's some beauty and simplicity, and that's an easy list to work with. And it's something that students can also remember. They're never going to know the 12 standards and all the whatever else they have to do, but they can remember those 4 things. And so that's what we work on. I sort of rolled in the old school, new school, what to keep, what to throw. I think the 3 R's plus, rhetoric is big. I would argue that, we should just be forcing less of this on kids. Like I go back and forth on whether or not school should be required overall, but I don't think so much should be required in school. Like even if we're going to say, okay, we are going to force them to come here, under the rule of law, you have to be here or, be homeschooled, whatever. Everybody should take a math class, and everybody should take a numeracy class and a literacy class. And I think sometimes we do a disservice, like in math, the idea we try to push everybody to get into calculus, but you have kids in calculus who can't do simple arithmetic in their heads, and so yes, you're very good in math overall, but you can't do the basic things easily. And if you're really good at math, that stuff should just be second nature. I should be able to rattle off some multiplication stuff. You should just be able to do it.
Okay. I'm going to come up against you as the math teacher. There's math and there's arithmetic. It's kind of like spelling and writing. It's not the same. It's like, you should be able to spell you can't spell all these words, so you're not a very good writer. That doesn't.
Well, no, but I think you should be able to manipulate numbers, like to manipulate words the same way. Like the idea is that you can take in what someone is sort of throwing at you, or that you can express it back yourself.
Okay,
I might not be explaining it well since I'm not a math teacher, but you need to have the power to manipulate numbers and manipulate words. And so you should take a literacy class and a numeracy class. And if you want to take the same, take graphic novels 1, graphic novels 2, graphic novels 3, hey, I think it sucks you're missing out on this great classic literature. There's a lot of other things that we could have done. It would have been great. But in the end, as long as you leave here where you're fully literate, you're fully numerate, and you have a little bit of critical thinking, a lot of those other things, could sort of sort themselves out. There's a million things I learned in high school that I forgot and then retaught myself later because I realized it was interesting or useful. I think a little more choice in school, and then you don't have to get rid of so much of the old school stuff. If a kid wants a lecture style class, let them take it. If a kid wants a project based class, take that. When we tell teachers you have to provide all the different opportunities, all the choice in the room, the kid can do a project, or the kid can do a paper, or the kid can do a test, or, and let them pick this. That's an unreasonable expectation for the teacher. Why don't we just have one teacher who does the lecture class, one teacher does the project class, one teacher does, whatever, and then let the kid pick the style of class that works for them. When we say the teacher has to present all the styles at once, it's a mess, and some people do it well, but not enough people do it well to justify it. So for the old school, new school, I don't know that that's really like they're diametrically opposed.
I've had plenty of times where like the curriculum calls for me to teach Shakespeare right now, and I still have kids in the class who can't write a sentence. And so I feel like I'm forced to be pushing them to this point, but it's not going to help anybody. I'm just going through the motion. Yeah.
And we become beholden to certain things that don't necessarily work for everybody. And it happens because a lot of the people who are legislating these things aren't teachers, haven't been teachers. They're only experienced in schools as a student. All of our experiences in school as students are very different. And just because you're a good student doesn't mean you know how school should run. Just because you're a bad student doesn't mean you don't know how school should run, right? And so I think that, I say this a lot in a lot of different settings, but, when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so when you're a legislator, the only thing you can do is legislate. And so if there's a problem in schools and you want to get reelected, you have to do something. And the only thing you can do is create new legislation. Yeah. And so you do it. And it's not that you're not trying to be evil. Like we end up with a lot of misguided or confusing sort of goals because we're not just sort of like dial it back. What are the basic things we're trying to accomplish here? And then create opportunities where kids can choose the way they get there. I think we should be doing the classic literature. I just don't think everybody needs to do it every time. in the end, we're taking what could have been a very simple process and making it complicated. And usually in the end, it's because we don't want to fund extra teachers in the building. Like, you could create more choice for the kids by having just a few extra teachers, hire 1 or 2 extra teachers per department. Think about how many extra classes you can offer, and then let the kids choose those classes.
And how much smaller the class sizes will be.
Yeah, I mean, it would benefit almost everything, and it's not about trying to suck up money or anything else. It would just literally, it would create the sort of freedom where kids who want that more traditional old school education, or the parents who want it, can do it. The kid who wants to go crazy on STEM and do all the tech stuff, like, do that. I don't think we should have to choose it. There are places in the world that couldn't fund the things I'm talking about. We could fund the things I'm talking about without the people, without anyone ever really knowing the difference. Mm-hmm. For 4 cups of coffee a month in your property taxes, all of a sudden we just hired extra teachers. Like, it's a negligible difference in a lot of cases, but we don't do it for other reasons, and that becomes very frustrating. So I don't know. I think the old and new both have a place. I think what we need to do is let students and parents figure out what place is the right one for them. Yeah, the old and new. I think it's a great question. For me, I would tell you I'd do both of them.
And to find out more what Ryan thinks, then you go subscribe to ClassCast Podcast.
Yeah, ClassCastPodcast.com.
and then you can hear all of his thoughts on that. So I'm
gonna check the show notes.
There you go. So here's the scenario. Maybe there was an apocalypse. Maybe you're on a desert island. Doesn't matter. There's some kind of scenario where
a nuclear explosion launched you onto a desert island.
Oh my goodness. And right before the bomb hits, it's also going to launch with you a bunch of high school students, okay? And so you need to rebuild society. So you get to pick one novel, one play, and one movie that you get to take with you on this desert island during the apocalypse to rebuild society and educate the only remaining youths in the world.
Yeah, you pull them all into your lead-based refrigerator, which then survives a nuclear explosion, as Indiana Jones has taught us.
Yes.
Yes. We have food and a DVD player and
Right. I'm going to guess for your own survival, you're not going to include Lord of the Flies, but
exactly. When I read the question, my first thought was Cormac McCarthy's The Road, but not because that's what I would want everyone to read. Like, I had never read the book. I'd seen the movie. The movie's okay, but the book is incredible. And I listened to the audiobook, and when I saw the question, my first thought was finishing that book. And I finished the audiobook on the first day of school, I think 2 years ago. Like, I'm pulling into the parking lot, listening to the audiobook, and I don't cry I've cried like 2 times since I was 10 years old. And I was like getting out of my car, like, oh my gosh, oh no, it's going to happen. And I went in, I was like, I gotta turn on some charisma. I got to teach the first day of school. And so my first thought when I saw this was like, oh, it's like The Road. And I was like, well, then I'll pick The Road. And I thought, no, there's no way that's what you want people to read if the world just ended. So that was the tricky part, because I think a lot of the best books, like the things that I would immediately jump to that are really instructional or even it's a great novel, but it teaches you a lot of stuff. A lot of them are built on the premise that the world is already messed up and you're trying to fix it. Like, I love Huckleberry Finn because it's all about moral development and being independent. And it's actually an anti-racist, but it's about trying to beat racism, but in a time period where racism's everywhere. So we read it now and people are like, it's a racist book. It's like, if you read it carefully, like, the whole book is about why racism's awful.
Right.
But it was written in a very racist time. So that comes out differently. Like, but that assumes the racism's there. If I have a very small group of people on a desert island, I'm not going to reintroduce the old problems, like Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut's one of my favorites, but I wouldn't bring that because that has all these political conflicts and like arms races and the conflict between atheism and religion and all this. And I'm like, no, you don't introduce the problem. So my book would probably be Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything, which, have either of you read it?
Nope.
It is remarkable. It is like the Bible of science and history. It's thick. It's a thick book. I've read it and I've listened to the audiobook. It is fantastic. And he basically does it's a short history of nearly everything. He gives you a history of the entire universe.
Oh, wow.
But in doing it, he tells you who the scientists and inventors were that realized these things. So when they get through the Big Bang, he tells you how the Big Bang, how we discover this and how we do the science. When he gets to geology and, the plate tectonics and all these things, it's not just that the continents are moving. He's telling you the names of the scientists who noticed it and then how they proved it. And so if I had one book to reteach, to reignite a society, I would do that, because while he doesn't go into the technical details of how it works, if you actually had smart people, it would tell them that all of this knowledge already existed. It would give you a lot of the end result, and it would say, and if you're smart enough, you can duplicate it and figure out how. Right. Okay. Like it gives you the answers, but it's like math where it doesn't show its work, but it gives you all the answers kind of deal. Okay. And so it's like it's very, very readable, but it's like this great compendium of natural history and science together. Like I would love to take it as a class. My other one would have been Sapiens by Noah Yuval Harari.
I've heard of that.
Switches. That one's good. That one's more like the biological evolution and cultural evolution of humans. It's cool. It does the same thing. It lets you know like what it is to be a human being in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that it's going to save any lives the way that maybe some of the stuff in the Bill Bryson book would. So that would be a way to bring back a lot of the best parts of what we know about the world. I don't read a lot of plays. Plays are tricky. Like I read a bunch in college and now I struggle to remember them. I think plays would be my place to say, you know, this is where we want to express some of like the romantic natures of being alive, like your humor, your love stories, you know, the drama. So I would probably go with Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. It's hilarious. It's beautifully written. There's great wordplay. There's some folklore and there's, you know, supernatural stuff. And there, you know, you get the love stories and all of it. So I think that would work well for like the human sort of piece of like, what does it feel like to be alive? What are the things we deal with?
You don't want to read The Crucible every year for the rest of your life?
No. Hey, by the way, full disclosure, you want to hear something wild? I've taught, this is the first year in 12 years that I'm not teaching The Crucible, and I have never read it.
Wow.
I've never read it. I've seen the movie. At this point, I've read all of it through teaching it, but I have never in my life read it start to finish straight through. Like, you know, and I sometimes when the kids start asking questions at the end, I'm like, you guys want to know, you want to know a secret? I've never read this thing. Like, I don't, and they're like, what? But you know all this stuff. I'm like, well, right. There's a lot of ways to learn about a thing. You don't have to do the thing. It is a great play, not to knock it. That was one of those ones, the first time I taught it, I didn't have time to read it and I had never read it in school. And I was like, well, I can prepare lessons or I can read a play. They'll know if I don't have a lesson ready, but they won't know if I didn't read it, you know? And so I never even got back to it, but I thought about it. The other one, Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde is hilarious. That's actually my favorite play, I think, but it's funny. You get all the love stuff and whatever, but it's not quite as whimsical as Midsummer Night's Dream.
One, so that's good.
You know? And so if you're doing, you know, if we're all trying to get over an apocalypse, maybe something that breaks the tension and gives you some hope and something fun would be good. I'm stumped on the movie though, guys. I don't know. Like a lot of my favorite movies are either going to reintroduce problems or not going to provide, you know, the kind of learning that we necessarily need. Like I keep thinking about like utopian stories and things, but it always either turns into a dystopia or is coming out of the dystopia and things are getting better. So I really, you know, my two favorite movies personally are Cool Hand Luke and Fight Club. And I don't know. And you know,
you like sweaty movies.
Yeah. Actually, I guess you think about it. There's some latent homoeroticism in there somewhere, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. But I don't know that I would take either one of those as like the movie to like restart a society on.
The correct answer is Stand and Deliver.
Stand and deliver. Yeah. Hey, guys, you're going to learn about determination and high expectations. If you pay really close attention, you're going to learn at least like 3 pieces of calculus. So
it's obvious. Yeah. The correct answer. I don't know why you guys are staring you right in the face. It's Toy Story. Okay.
Toy Story. Yeah. See, there probably is like a good kids movie that would do it. You know,
has anybody else stopped and wondered? Okay, so if Buzz Lightyear doesn't know he's a toy, why doesn't he fly around the room when Andy's there?
Yeah, it's okay. Don't cut holes in. Don't put holes in Toy Story. Okay, no. Yes.
You know, another one, actually a good one for the kids, especially.
My answer is groupthink.
You know, it'd be
gave
good.
Into peer pressure, and that saved the day, kids.
Yes. I think that's my answer. I think we found the answer. You said the kids. I think ants, because the whole thing is about how like anyone in that colony could stand up and do it.
The Woody Allen movie?
Yeah, but it's also really strongly anti-authoritarian. And so if you were trying to relaunch a society starting with 20 or 30 people, maybe having one of your core items being that any person in the group is capable and that you should never let one person have too much power. Like that's completely, I would have never thought of that if you hadn't said,
well, there you go.
Hadn't said Toy Story, but something like that, something along those lines. Like it has some other things to it, but you need something that empowers the individual. And I don't know that any of the other ones necessarily do. That's one of the reasons that I really like Cool Hand Luke is it's like the power of the individual and you decide what it's worth to you to risk it and all that. But I don't know that would be the
eggs.
So yeah. 50. You couldn't have said 30, Luke. 50. Yeah, but no, something like ants, something that has a little bit of that anti-authoritarian piece and that empowers the individual. Because if you're thinking about it, if you were going to relaunch a group, think about how every time you hear about a cult or whatever else, there's always somebody, or a group that goes and lives up. There's always one or two people who rise to power and everyone else suffers for it. So you'd have to find a movie that fights that idea while not undermining the other goals of the group. And maybe Ants or something like that.
Okay. Or Life of Brian.
Yeah. That's actually, it's funny you said that because when Mealey has this question, my thought for the book was You're Not So Smart. Have you ever heard of that? It's just a list of like logical fallacies and like what were the like experiments that brought these to light and what do those results mean for us every day? So
that could be good. Yeah. What is it? The other one, the lies my teacher told me or something. I feel odd that I'm recommending Ants. I mean, it is a decent movie, but that something like that might be the one. I'm sure I'll think of a better substitution later, but yeah, that would be good.
All right, Ryan. So do you have any funny stories from the classroom that when you're out at a get together with the buddies, you're like, guys, you got to hear about this.
Anywhere I go, I actually try not to tell people what I do. But without fail, somebody will mention it. And being a teacher is one of the jobs that people will immediately talk to you about your work because no matter what they do, they went to school. Right. So, if I have a friend who's like, well, I'm a mechanical engineer and everyone's like, wow, that sounds interesting. And then no one ever talks about it again, But if you say you're a teacher, all of a sudden everybody wants to tell you about their teacher or what their kid's doing in school or ask you a question. So, I try to dodge that sometimes because I end up stuck in a lot of teacher talk. But probably two of the funniest ones just off the top of my head. It was actually my first episode of my podcast was with a guy named Eric Hernandez, who was a Gold Glove boxer, went pro. He now runs his own personal training company. He was a former student. He's one of my favorite former students. And I go back and listen, and I did like a terrible job, first podcast, still learning how to record. And, so I got to redo it with him. But there's a funny story where he was one of the like most outgoing, funny kids, very respectful, but also not like a great traditional student. Like he would talk at any point in class, but was always quick to realize he did it, would apologize. And just the nicest kid. And one time his phone rang in his pocket. He was in 9th grade English. I think it was my first or second year teaching. And he answered his phone in class.
Nice.
I'm like, Eric, what are you doing? And the thing was, it had already rang a couple of times. He's trying to silence it, whatever. And he's speaking Spanish, and he's like giving me one of these, like holding his finger up from the back of the room, like, no, hang on. I'm like, I'm starting to get mad. I'm like, dude, don't hold your finger. Like, what are you doing? Like, he goes, hang on. It's my grandma's, man. Sorry, it's my grandma. I don't know what you want me to do. Grandma calls. She never calls it this time. I got to answer. And I was like, get out of the room. So he walks slowly across the room, like talking with his grandma, goes out in the hall, and he comes back. I'm like, what was that? And he goes, yeah, I don't know. She just wanted to know where I was. And she thought I wasn't in school. And I was like, well, you were clearly in school. Why don't you let me talk to her? And he's like, she doesn't really speak a lot of English. So I had to tell her. And she didn't actually believe that I was here until she heard you yelling at me in the background. So because that actually helped me out. And I was like, what? So that was just a fun one because that was one of those moments I was like, you know what? I easily could have completely flipped in that moment. Like I was still young. I have a lot more patience now than I did then. I could have lost it. And in the end, it was hilarious. And it actually kept him out of trouble at home. He was a stellar, model student for the next 3 classes because he was embarrassed about it and stuff. So, but that was so funny. He takes the phone call and then I don't even know what he's saying. He's speaking Spanish. And another one, I had a kid several years ago. I now grow these in my garden, but he brought ghost peppers into school. Ooh. And on a dare, like he was saying his family grew them and blah, blah, blah. And, I wouldn't eat them. I was like, dude, I like spicy food. Like I've had ghost peppers. I'm like, I'm not eating a whole ghost pepper. You can give me a little piece. I'll eat it. And, and they're all, you're white people don't eat spicy things. You think ketchup's spicy, whatever. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, just wait until those same jokes come back at you. And then they're like, did he just threaten to say racist stuff? Like no one ever knows what that means. But at the end of the class, the kid chopped up the peppers. I had a little piece. We're good. I'm like, it's hot, but I'm good. But the thing was, he didn't take him home. He put him in his backpack and put him in his locker. And so the next day, when his friends had heard that I ate a piece of this ghost pepper with him, he was like, all right, well, everybody's got to try anybody who wants to try the ghost pepper, except the kids who didn't know, he was cutting them like larger chunks. So he didn't give them whole peppers. They had in that day, and actually it was over like the next 2 days, because there was a day that I was out on like training. One kid threw up in the hallway from eating the ghost pepper. One kid like started to hyperventilate.
Yeah.
they thought he was on drugs. They thought he was on drugs. They called the police on somebody. He's like, I just ate a hot pepper, but he couldn't breathe. Another kid had it and then tried to fix his contact and rubbed it in his eye. He had to leave and go to the hospital. And no. And you know what? That's what it was. He didn't put it in his locker. I have a little mini fridge in my room. That's what it was. And I left him he's like, can I keep him here? I got practice after school. So he was supposed to come back and get him. I forgot about it. And I was out 2 days later and he was back in class. So he came in the morning, got them, told the sub, did whatever. And then one of those hit during my class. So like the kid who threw up or something, he slipped him a piece of pepper in the middle of class. The kid ate it, ran out of my classroom, and threw up in a hallway somewhere. And so, and they suspended the kid for the peppers. They said that you brought contraband to school. And I'm like, well, if he didn't trick them, like he told them it was spicy and it's food and it's not illegal, like, I'm not saying we can't yell at him, but I don't know. I think he got suspended for like 2 or 3 days because
he was contraband, though.
No, I know. No. So now we're all the kid
that has like a sandwich. Is that contraband?
Yeah, I don't know. So he did get in some trouble for it, even though, like I said, he didn't lie to anybody. He's like, it's really hot, and people were like, oh, I can eat it, and all the kids try to get tougher than each other, and they had a pass out, a burnt eye, a vomit.
Nice.
I feel like throwing up the spicy food would be way worse because it's all in your sinuses.
That one again, I missed because I was out that day because some of that happened in my class with that substitute, and so I heard about all this by email that night, and then the next day in the building. I don't understand how I've eaten really spicy things, and I've never eaten something so spicy that made me want to throw it up.
Me neither. Maybe that's an allergic reaction.
Maybe I'm maybe it's something else going on. But yeah, they had a kid they had to drag a kid down the hall to the nurse. They had all this stuff. I thought so the ghost pepper is a good one just there because I have a big garden, so I grow a bunch of hot peppers and I make hot sauce, and so I have some ghost pepper hot sauce that I make in my classroom. And when kids are like, let me try it, I'm like, no. I'm like, no.
So, I was going to say, see, in my mind, I went somewhere else, and this is what you want to do next time, okay, is like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you can do it with the hot sauce. Now you have the hot sauce, and you just set up like 8 shot glasses, and with the ghost pepper hot sauce, and sit a kid across the desk from you, and go, okay, we're going. Like let's see if we can, let's see who can make it.
I did last year. Last year, I let some kids try it, and it was because I had a couple of it's a very diverse school. Mm-hmm. We're right at 50%. I think we're about 50% white. In the next year or two, we'll be majority minority. But then we have kids from all over. It's a huge East and South Asian population. A lot of Hispanic students, and so you get anybody from East Asia, South Asia, or Central America and say, I like spicy food. And they're like, you're so white, I can see through you. You don't like spicy food. And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with your racial stereotypes, but fine, let's do this. And so I did let a couple of kids who I knew they were reasonable kids. They weren't going to, vomit in the hall or rat me out or whatever. And I let them try it. At one point, I let a kid take a little sampler jar home. 2 of them actually. And the one his mom was trying to pay me for hot sauce. She's from Vietnam, so I was sending hot sauce to the Vietnamese woman, and the other girl, her dad, I forget where he's from, somewhere in Central America. He said he demanded to buy it, and I was like, I can't take money from you, I'm teaching your kid. And he's like, he emails me, he's like, what do you need? And I was like, one of my staplers is broken. She came in the next day with a brand new stapler in exchange for a jar of the hot sauce. So that's I was like, I take all this as a compliment. It means I'm making decent hot sauce. It also means that it was hot, like we said. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I've got plenty, but those are 2 of the easy ones that are also a little more G-rated. Cool. A lot of the funniest stories are something goes very wrong at first, and then you correct it and things get better, and in the end, haha, we can laugh at it. But a lot of those stories start with something that's either a little darker or a little more dangerous. So
right.
We're good. No, that's good. Okay. Well, I think we thank you so much, Ryan. We really enjoyed having you. This is going to be, I do 2 thank yous every time. Did you know that, Tudisco? I do the on-air thank you, and then I do the off-air thank you. This will be the on-air thank you.
That's good. I feel fully thanked already, but I'm eagerly awaiting the other one. Yeah, maybe we get through the winter rush here with holidays and stuff. This is always a weird time for podcasts because gotta like work with families and the rest. But maybe we can do the return and you guys can join on my podcast.
Yeah, we're definitely willing to come on. We're definitely willing to
talk
come
about
on.
all the ways that school sucks and it could be better.
Yeah, we definitely would come on.
Are you implying school's not perfect?
Yes,
I am implying that there is nothing that is perfect. Although I get close on my good days, but no, there's nothing that is, that's my whole thing. That's a big part of my podcast is just talk to lots of different kinds of people about how we can do it better. And whether and sometimes it's someone who's literally selling a program or something. And sometimes it's a former student. You know, I've talked to people who just run charities and they're like, do you know how many poor kids are in this community that don't do anything? Hey, here's what school could do. And it's, as it turns out, every guest has a cool new idea about the way school could be better. Yeah. And I don't know that you could do all of them, but I do know that a lot of the things we've talked about, I've never heard brought up in a faculty meeting. Yeah. And which is why I feel like the podcast is still purposeful. Like when I start having conversations where I feel like, well, I've heard this before, or we're at the point where, you know, none of this is possible or useful, that's when I'd probably hang it up. But for now, no, school is far from perfect, but also not so damaged that we need to throw it away. So my whole discussion is about, you know, how can we improve it and do it better?
Definitely. Cool. Well, we definitely
rehire Betsy DeVos. I think that's the answer.
Well, I mean, obviously.
I'll trade her jobs.
Everything. Okay. So thank you, Ryan, again. As we always say, stay unprofessional.
Thanks for listening, Unprofessionals. For more information about our guest, please check out our show notes.
Stay unprofessional.